Skyrim VR port found to be a dumpster fire. South Park finally gets to go to Australia, and a game memorializes its executive producer. My name is Ash, aka Ninja Noxai, and welcome to Ninja News. Before we get into the news, I would like to say thank you to all who tuned in to last week's opening episode. It was a bit daunting for me. I'm still learning how to get good at this kind of thing. It's just going to take time for me. So I would like to say thank you to all who tuned in, liked, commented, possibly subscribed if you did do that, or shared it around. That is greatly appreciated. Before we go into the news, of course, as I said, I will be describing my week. My week last week wasn't too overly eventful. I'm on call for work, so I couldn't really go out and do stuff. Two major things happened to me last week. I got the new Queens of the Stone Age album, Villains. Villains to me feels like a really, really, really good Queens of Stone Age album. It isn't, if you're expecting something along the lines of Songs for the Deaf or Era Vulgaris or Rated R for that matter, you're not going to get that. It feels like a cross between Songs for the Deaf and Lullabies to Paralyze, where it has fun points where you just want to get up and you want to dance to the songs. It just feels really good. And you have your low melodic, dramatic songs that you would expect in Lullabies to Paralyze, where it's not in your face, but it feels good, something just to chill back and listen to. So all in all, as a Queens of Stone Age album, I highly recommend it if you're a fan of it. If you are new to Queens of Stone Age, it's something to get into, but I'd recommend listening to Songs for the Deaf first. That's their biggest mainstream success, and then work your way from there and see if you actually like Villains, not Lullabies Paralyzed. That's the album after Songs for the Deaf. Second big news for me this week is my hot water broke. What happened was this. Okay, I've got solar hot water. It's been in my house for about 20 years. And over the weekend, what happened was the tank itself cracked. So on the inlet that goes into the tank, it's spraying a leak and it's just leaking water. It won't hold and it will just not boil properly and everything. So long and short of it, we need to replace the whole entire unit. So hopefully this week I will get a new hot water service that will be a bit more robust than when we originally got it, because as I said, it's 20 years old. So we got it back in 97, a really technologically advanced item at the time, but nowadays it should be a bit more what's the word I'm looking for here? Dynamic and robust and economic. That's the word, economic. Yes, I can get words right. So that's my week. I hope everybody else had a good week, and without further ado, let's move into the news. VR Skyrim port an absolute dumpster fire. With Bethesda trying to squeeze as much money out of Skyrim as possible, the recent VR port has been met with a lot of negative criticism. Multiple YouTube personalities have reported back saying it is not good. Where the teleporting for the VR aesthetic to move around feels extremely alien to its original purpose, where you could actually move as freely as possible. The graphics are scaled down like no tomorrow, so it looks horrendous in comparison to the original game, and the AI is also not scaled to interact with you in a VR setup. Now, due to the fact of these feedback comments, most people are feeling very reprised back to the Skyrim VR port and not feeling as though it could be a good thing. And considering the fact that the game's coming out on November 7th and is marked as in development, Bethesda has two options for this. They can delay the original release date and say, we're not going to release it on this date, we're going to come back to it a bit later and release it once we got rid of the bugs, or release it on the original scale date, ignore what the people have told them and just go, this is the final product, and then watch everybody's feedback. Bethesda actually goes with option 1, because if you don't go with option 1, you're going to get massive backlash with their fans. They're trying to put it on all different platforms. You got it on Skyrim, you got it, hell, there's even an iOS port, mobile port that's apparently coming along. And then you've also got the fact that it's getting upscaled for all different platforms, 4K, you name it, it will get thrown out there. I admit, it probably is a very good game. I myself have not played it. I wish I did play it, but you win some, you lose some. But trying to force it into VR sometimes does not work. They may need to step back and look at the design of the VR that they're trying to go for. Probably even look at Resident Evil Biohazard. Biohazard had a good VR feel to it, where it wasn't teleported, you'd still move around stuff and you'd still do actions, but it was a bit more user-friendly when it came to it. So Bethesda, delay the thing, review your schematics, review the design, and make sure you release a proper game. On the good news scale, in comparison to Skyrim VR, Battlegrounds has surpassed 870,000 concurrent users on Steam and edges out Seniors Go for second all-time highest game users in a single session. Reported by Steam Spy, the game surpassed the milestone mark on Steam on August the 27th, placing it as the top game for the day, passing Dota 2 for 842,000. The Invitational has actually been marked as the turning point for why this game had such high numbers, as it happened during the Gamescom weekend, and it was stated as an inspirational point for more people to get in the game at the same time, to try and play it with as many people and get as friendly as with everybody as possible. Dota 2 still holds the main record at close to 1.3 million players in a single game in a concurrent session back in March last year, but with the release on consoles to be slated later this year, it could surpass the mark, not based on Steam, but if all the extra platforms were taken into account. I have to give congratulations to Battlegrounds. It's done well for an indie game that came out last year, came out of nowhere, and everybody looked at it as like, hey, it's a new H1Z1 map mod that's replacing Arma 2, the Arma 2 mods and stuff like that. So as a indie game type thing, where it's a small development team to make it, they have done extremely well, and that game is just gaining traction. It seems like a lot of fun. As I said, with Skyrim, I haven't actually played this game. It's a bit of a pity, but you win some, you lose some. You can't play every single game, especially when you're at my age, where you've got a full-time job and you don't exactly have the time of day just to sit back. I have a lot of games in my schedule, I admit that. I'm trying to play them all on Twitch, and get them through as many of them as possible, so that way I can free up my log for games like this, and then play as many of them as possible for viewer pleasure, so everybody likes what I'm playing and can join in during live sessions. Massive congratulations to South Park The Fractured Butthole for achieving its R18 plus rating in Australia, which means it will lose no content and will be available on release in Australia. After initial issues with the classification board, where they turned around and said earlier this year it's not coming up because of some scenes that were actually in this game, the review board has actually come back and said that the game will be released on the scheduled date with an R18 plus rating. This scheduled date is on October 17th. No changes, as I said, to the game are going to be made to the game itself upon release. This isn't the first time a South Park, Ubisoft-based South Park game has caused controversy, with the first game actually having a whole scene cut out and replaced with a picture of a crying koala with the message stating that due to the classification board in Australia, we can't show you this scene, which they describe the scene all in detail, where Stan Randy Marsh gets violently anal probed as you try to save him from an alien gadget. See, this is a victory in a way for video games. We only recently got an R18 rating. If a game didn't meet the MA15 plus classification, which is just a step down, it's like saying you're PG-13, but it's a step between PG-13 and R18 over in America. We have that little gap there that the MA15 plus covers. But when it came to R18 plus, we couldn't actually get anything like that. If a game was deemed too full on for audiences to actually consume, we would not get it released in Australia. This has happened many times. A few of the Mankind games got banned. Mortal Kombat originally was considered to be banned in Australia. There was a whole raft of games that was just, you're not going to get them here in Australia. But now that we're getting games like South Park The Fractured Butthole reconsidered and placed under an R18 plus rating, I like this. I like the fact that they're actually considering these games could also have a negative impact on children, so we will actually consider them to be adults only games, which is a perfect point, because you watch South Park and everything like that, it's not kid friendly. You don't want your kids getting a hold of this. This is an adult based game, so give it to just adults. So, going from the good side of games coming up to the bad side of games, Destiny YouTubers have massive concerns with YouTube's ad boards demonetizing Destiny 2 videos. In the lead up to Destiny 2, ad bots on YouTube are starting to demonetize most, if not all, Destiny 2 related videos, as many Destiny based YouTubers are actually finding out. They may try to put forward their game to be monetized, and then all of a sudden the YouTube ad bot would give it a big axe on it. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened to a video game. In the lead up to Call of Duty World War II, the beta, certain YouTubers were seeing their ad revenue on their videos being revoked because the ad companies would not want them to actually place ads on these things. This also has brought forward investigations into the original ad revenue overhaul brought back in April, in which advertising companies would actually say, we don't want our ad products to be placed onto a video which would be deemed heavily violent or have heavy anti what their company stands for views, such as, like, say, if you see the boss baby on, say, a what would be the best example we've got here, Doom video. So you have a bloody gory thing with boss baby. It's not exactly what you call right, which is understandable. With that being said about this, YouTube really needs to review its ad bots. I admit there's too much for one person or a group of people to do, but you might want to review the cases upon which people are turning around and saying, we would like this bot to be reviewed. You don't want to really alienate your audience, although you've kind of already done it. You're screwing people over like no tomorrow. So YouTube, you're becoming a very unfriendly platform. Many people are starting to move away from your monetizing and going to, say, Twitch or Patreon to gain revenue or make an income. But you could redeem yourself if you turn around and actually listen to these people and said, we are not going to let the bots run the game. We are going to help you and we're going to review everything we do. Hopefully that is the case. Next news story on the plate is Overwatch based, and unlike last week where we had a lot of controversy, this is good news because Overwatch on the console has now got a report-based system in place to report people in certain matches. After a year from release and months after the original PC update, PS4 and Xbox One owners now have the ability to report players on console. Included with the Deathmatch update with the Map 4 Deathmatch, players can now report through the Recent Players tab with a drop-down Reports menu on options on what to report the players with on this area. The reason for this update taking for so long, in Kaplan's word, was due to it being extremely challenging from a technical standpoint because it goes beyond the simple change to the Overwatch game client. I understand where Kaplan comes from this. What you're trying to do is you're trying to implement a feature upon which in the original game was never there. And you've got to connect it to a certain server that would review and implement points of strategy in which you yourself can report back to the person in question or the reviewers in question. So understanding that you're not just changing the client, you're changing a fair few aspects of the game is a humongous thing. And it also would return back onto people in the way of saying, oh, we're banning you because giving you X amount of ban or review points under your name because you've done X and Y, and people have said no. So good on Overwatch for actually bringing out a reporting scheme on console. Just wait and see about other games that will actually do the same in the same process. In other news, Destiny 2 has stated it will be releasing its first DLC, which will star Orisis and add a new patrol zone on Mercury. High-level source over at Bungie has released initial details on the first DLC for Destiny 2, stating that its title will be called The Curse of Osiris and is scheduled to be coming out in December, 3 months after the game's initial release. The DLC story will revolve around Osiris, as previously named, who is a key figure in Destiny's lore, from a robotic alien called Vex. The DLC will be set to be larger than the original game's The Dark Below, and will include a new patrol zone and a new social space. Okay, Destiny, I'm gonna have to say something to you right now. You guys are getting a bit hungry. You're aiming for the fact that your game will be successful on launch. You've got to accept the fact that sometimes games like this will not happen like that. That's like saying that with Pokemon that they originally planned that this was going to be perfectly fine and everybody could get in and everything would be fine. And then Pokemon Go just nosedive in a freaking dumpster fire, and they're still trying to fix the game today, and they realize it's not working. But good on them for the planning the DLC that will be larger than the original DLC, because from what we heard in the original game, the first few packs of DLC that came out with the game weren't exactly that large. They weren't meaty, didn't have good story chunks and everything, and just still kind of felt barren. Whereas when the Dark Below came out, the last DLC for the game, actually no, it's not Dark Below, it was what was the last DLC? I can't remember. I never played the first game because I never had the chance to do it. The last DLC actually added content to the game and helped players understand it a bit more and feel more engaged in it, whereas the original DLCs in the original game itself didn't feel like it had enough meat to sustain the game itself. Speaking about games that will be getting a nice little release, Capcom is re-releasing Street Fighter 2 for all purposes of a console that you never would have expected, the SNES. It is releasing a special edition cartridge. Produced in conjunction with IM8-bit, the $100 US dollar cartridge will be available to pre-order now and will be shipped in November. The cartridge will come in two variants: opaque Ryu Red or translucent glow-in-the-dark Blanca Green. The limited edition run will be capped at 55,000, but that's for the opaque Ryu Red. The green edition will be capped at 1,000. Both editions will include a foil stamp box and a premium instruction manual, as well as other goodies to go with it. IM8-bit have also stated that this isn't the only cartridge that they're going to do. This is going to be the first in a initial run of Legacy Cartridge Collection. I did not expect this. Like, of all the games, all the things to do with a classic game to bring it forward, I understand the nostalgia of doing classic consoles and everything like that, but doing it in a classic cartridge? That's huge. I like what they're doing with the cartridge as well. You can get two different variants. I don't know if you can purchase either or. I haven't actually been on the website, but as a collector's item, if you're really into Street Fighter and Street Fighter 2, where Street Fighter really started gaining traction, it is a worthwhile purchase for the collector inside your own family. So if you're up for it, go and get it now, and it will get to you by November. Hell, you can even get it as a Christmas present. Go and get it for your significant other who actually really likes Street Fighter. Going from the good of game collection to the bad of game collection and features, The Escapist 2 is adding an option to disable popular YouTube characters after players complain to the studio. The game, a sequel to the original Jailbreak sandbox simulator, has received backlash on Steam players as they are not liking YouTubers being a part of their gameplay. The biggest issue was due to the increased spawn rate of these personalities in-game. Players were not liking their populating rate. Other users have, however, somehow missed the ability to get these people in-game altogether. Even though the original game did give the ability to get YouTube personalities, the backlash has now prompted the game to actually add in the disable feature. It's nice to hear people, developers listening to fans, but at the same time, the reason why this feature would have been added in is because of the fact that personalities such as, like, say, Jack Skeptic Guy, Dan the Diamond Minecart, and Cinnamon Toast Can, who are actually in this game, was to drive up sales and give a bit more influence and a bit more personality to the game. I understand where certain users come from to say, okay, I don't like having certain characters in my game and the population rate should be dropped down. And also the ability to disable feature, because sometimes you just don't want those things in there, but you gotta accept it, that it can be a part of this game. To completely remove it altogether is to remove certain features that the developers actually spent time, effort, and money into to get into this game. So, good on the developers of The Escapist 2 to put in the feature. Bit of a shit move where they turned around and said, hey, we put the spawn rates up like this so that way you guys might get a copy of them. Oh wait, we put 50 copies in your one game. On the good point of indie games, Team Meat is returning with a sequel to the original Super Meat Boy called Super Meat Boy Forever. Ahead of PAX West, developers Team Meat came into the Nintendo Wire livestream to discuss their sequel to Super Meat Boy Forever. The game will be a 2-button endless runner, but in the style of Super Mario Run. Wall jumps can change the direction of the character, and also function as a the function of a duck has been added. There has also been punches added to the character, and sliding off the edge of a cliff will allow for a forward swing. The game will be out in 2018 for, wait for this, there's a fair few consoles: Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Android. I watched some gameplay of this game, and it looks cool. At the same time, I would love for them just to keep the original aesthetic of the game that was in there. I remember playing the original Super Meat Boy. I haven't passed it, I should really get around to doing it, but long and short of it, it is a game that is what I'd like to call a frustrating platformer, where it is harsh, it is full on, and it takes Dark Souls difficulty and puts it in a platformer scenario. Cool and all that, but should turn around and say, no, we're not going to do an endless run. It's kind of a form of pandering, as I understand, but you don't really need this kind of thing in your game. You can just play as it was before and just go with it, and it's all cool. So, looking forward to seeing it, but I don't like the style that it's going to be coming out as. Last news for the day, Shadows of War producer has been memorialized in DLC for the game. After the passing of Monolith executive producer Michael Forgey in March due to cancer, the staff at Monolith have announced this week that they will be memorializing him in-game by making a DLC orc based on him. He'll be cast as Fort Hog Orc Slayer, a powerful orc who randomly appears to help the player. The weapon he will use will be an axe shaped into a form of a musical instrument, as Forgy was a practiced musician. The DLC will be priced at $4.99 with $3.50 going directly to his family as support. All donations will be available up to the point of 31st of December 2019. I like it when games do this. One of the games I kickstarted way back in the day was Grim Dawn. I'm gonna keep harping on about that game like no tomorrow. They actually added a character in during Act 3 when one of the people who kickstarted the game and was an avid fan of it passed away. They made him as a certain character that will guard the gates of Homestead. That was a nice touch. This here from Monolith is also an extremely nice touch where they added in a character. You could pay for him, you don't have to, but a great portion of the profits taken from this character will go to his family, support them in their time of loss. That is good. I like that. I wish more games would do that more nowadays. But then again, you'd have to allow planning and resources and everything like that. But if the staff and the company behind it are willing to put their hands up and say, we're willing to do it, good on them. I greatly support it. That being said, I'm probably still not getting Shadows of War because of the fact of what they did in the way of the crate system. Very, very bad. And that's it for Ninja News this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below, like, subscribe, share it around, share it to your friends. Give me some more news stories down below in the comments, of course. If you want to follow me, I am available on Twitter at twitter.com/NinjaNogsai. I'll also be streaming this week on certain dates. Go onto my Facebook feed at facebook.com/NinjaNogsai. I'll post up a schedule on there. Otherwise, go on to my Twitch at twitch.tv/NinjaNogsai, and I will give you and follow me on there, and you get alerts when I go live. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great week, and I will catch you next week for some more Ninja News.